All right, guys, it's great to be back. I don't know what other choices you had about where you're going to spend today at this time, but I think you made the right choice. Some of the guys have been talking. They've been saying, you know what? The things I've heard with regards to what we said in the last two sessions about work, a lot of guys said, man, it's nothing short of enlightening. One guy said it's even been life-changing in the way that he's now going to look at work. And especially how we spend most of our time as men. We spend most of our time at work. Or as we define work last week, our vocation, our calling. And so this is good stuff. This is life-changing. I want to give you a snapshot of the last two sessions. First of all, we talked about the major motivations that we have toward work. We looked at 8 of them in session 11, and then we looked at the lowest to the highest. From those who are merely paycheck-driven to those who are more purpose-driven. We also said in that session that the more of these motivations that a man has, the more successful and meaningful his life will be. Then last week, we talked about the 2 primary perspectives that we can carry with us into work. One is that you can just see your work as a have-to. Just one of those things that's kind of a concession to life, a necessary evil. You remember we said last week that is the perspective that most people have. That is the prevailing view of work. And we call that just a concession to life. The other view is a higher view where we see work as a calling of God. And that's the road that we've cut so far in our time together in talking about winning at work. Today in this session, I want to bring it down to a very personal and a very practical level. I want to give you some handles that you can immediately hold on to and put to use. So let's start with a focal question about work, okay? Here it is. Write this down on your outline. Am I excited about what I do? Am I excited about what I do? Excited about my work? A friend of mine had lunch with George Gallup, the famous pollster, one day. They talked about a variety of subjects, but part of their discussion turned toward the world of work. And Gallup expressed his concern for men in the workplace. He said that millions, even billions of dollars are being lost every year because most men in the workplace feel like they are a forced fit. Gallup said that that feeling has a real way of demotivating us and demotivating the effort that we give each day to our work. Last week I said that in a poll, Gallup survey, they found that 50% of workers today don't feel personally engaged in their work. And by not engaged, that meant that that didn't mean they didn't work hard. The poll found that at least half of the workforce goes to work feeling no personal connection to their work. There's no personal passion for what they do or personal commitment to their work. Do you know that the least satisfied of all workers in America today are men between the ages of 30 and 49. Between the ages of 30 and 49. Those are the least satisfied of all workers in America today. So the question is, are you excited about your work? Are you motivated to go to work each day? Did you wake up this morning at the start of the day with a little spark of, man, I really want to do this with regards to your work? Or was it just a have to, a concession to life? You know, if I ask you to speak honestly and freely about your work, maybe you really feel like Bill does in this clip from the movie Meet Bill.
There you go. Change. Have a sweet, sweet day.
Bill, why do you want a donut store? This place sucks.
Let me tell you something, kid. Working sucks, okay? Working sucks. And it doesn't matter if you're in a bank, a department store, or a donut factory. Because once you've been there long enough, the only thing you'll care about is when your next pay increase is, how many vacation days you've accrued, and if your health insurance is going to pay for the cholesterol medicine that keeps your heart pumping. Then, after you've gained 20 or 30 pounds, you wake up and discover that you're working for your father-in-law in a position with a gratuitous title and you're totally replaceable. And not only is the new guy better at your job, but he's got a better car and better jokes and better hair. So no matter what you do, you make sure you make a lot of money doing it because it all sucks. And that is one lesson I, as your mentor, can teach you.
All right, is that you? Is that how you feel? I mean, you know, if we uncorked you, is that what would just kind of pour out of you? Is that what we would hear? At some point in our work, we've probably all felt a little gut level connection to the old David Allan Coe song. It was also a big hit for a guy named Johnny Paycheck back in the 70s. Y'all know the song I'm talking about. Chorus goes like this. You can take this job and what? Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. My woman done left and took all the reasons I've been working for. You better not try to stand in my way as I'm walking out that door. Everybody, you can take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Now, some of you are saying, whew, that felt good. You know, on some levels, it's kind of therapeutic, isn't it? But what makes work worth it? What is it that brings our work alive and gives us energy? What makes it more than just a routine, more than just a have to? I've got 5 practical answers to that question, 5 key ingredients that can add life to your work. We're going to call them 5 work energizers. So on your outline, here's the first one. The right dream. Having the right dream. Now, you know, life would be pretty dull without dreams. Dreams give soul, gives to the soul what food gives to the body. That's the energy that we need to run on. When you have some dream that's pulling you forward rather than you being pushed down by circumstances, that dream is actually feeding your efforts and energizing your life. For instance, what if I told you that every man here who finished the 10 Key Moves worksheet, you know that thing I challenged you with last fall, those of you who were with us from the beginning, and then also a few weeks ago I said I challenged you to do it, to complete your 10 Key Moves worksheet. What if I told you that every guy who finished that and turned it in, that he would be rewarded with a Harley Davidson? Now, would you be motivated to do that? Absolutely, wouldn't you? I mean, you know, it just gives unbelievable energy to that one piece of work. Now, if you believe that you're going to get a Harley at the end of the quest, guys, I want to tell you, you're not dreaming. You're hallucinating. All right, but you get the point, okay? Dreams give energy to all of our activities. So what are your dreams when it comes to work? What do you dream about at work? Achieving at work, having at work? What do you dream about contributing to work or even to the broader community through your work? Do you have a clear mental picture that's pulling you forward, something that's compelling to you? And are you making progress in those dreams? Here's the first thing you need to know about having the right dream. You pursue with passion only what you dream about. You pursue with passion only what you dream about. Business consultant Bob Beal estimates that less than 20% of men in the workplace have what he calls well-defined dreams that pull them forward in their work. Now, he usually consults for executive businessmen and professionals across the country, and from that wealth of experience, in his opinion, he says that most men go to work visionless. They only see the immediate. They think no further than today or this week, or at best, this quarter. The bigger vision of where my work should be taking me, or what I should be achieving through it, or what I can contribute by it, or the legacy that I want to leave in it. Those dreams are often missing in most men, according to Bob Beal. Now, this creates in their day-to-day work what Beal calls an uninspired drift rather than an energetic drive. You know, when Martin Luther King delivered his famous speech in front of the Lincoln Memorial, August 28, 1963, you could feel it, you could taste it, you could see it when he said, "I have a dream today." And he was motivated by that dream, and others were energized by it. Now, wouldn't it be great if every guy in this room could go to work saying, "I have a dream about my work today"? Now, I want to clarify for you what I mean by having a dream, okay? I'm not talking about some unrealistic fantasy. The Bible really warns about that in Romans 12 when it says, "No man should think of himself more highly than he ought to think." I'm not talking about fantasies. I'm talking about something that's realistic, and that's why we're calling it a right dream. A right dream has 3 components to it, okay? Here they are in a definition. A right dream is something I can do and something I want to do that accomplishes something worth doing. Now, It may be hard to do. In fact, it might require great faith to even believe that you can do it, but it is something you can do. And then it's something you want to do, and it's something that will make a positive difference. It changes lives and blesses people. It positively impacts. It's something I can do, and I want to do, that accomplishes something worth doing. That's what we mean by a right dream. Let me tell you my story, okay? I found my dream in my 20s. It captured my life then. It still does now. After growing up in churches that were more about religion than a relationship with God, more about following a list than following Christ, I knew that I wanted to do whatever I could do to help people connect with God and learn how to integrate His truth into their lives. That was my dream then, and it's my dream now. It carried me through my college years. I saw all my classes through that perspective. My summer jobs, whether it was construction work or performing at a musical theme park in Nashville, they were more than just about a paycheck because of that dream. After college, I had an opportunity to work as a pastor to students, and I learned that my dream had to be bigger than just my skills or my gifts and my abilities. And so I assembled a team comprised of young adults for the energy they brought to the table, the spontaneity. Also, there were some older adults, more spiritually seasoned adults, because I knew I needed wisdom. And I called them my leadership family. And that's when I learned that if my dream was going to have substance, then it could not be built around my personality. It had to be bigger than me. And it was through that leadership family that the lives of our students were most impacted. When I left that church, I was only there for 3 years, leadership family gave me this plaque. Now, you know, of all the awards or whatever, you know, this one means a lot to me because it reminds me of that dream then and that dream I have now. It simply says, given to Tear Screen in love and appreciation for introducing us to a daily quiet time alone with God in Bible study and prayer, for each week sharing teaching and Bible knowledge and music with the leadership family of Edwards Road Baptist Church, August 1980. Ben and Millie Burns, Taylor and Mary Ann Odom, Kim Stafford, Jenny Wilson, Mike and Beverly Howard, Gene Stafford, Toby and Susan Stansel, Paul and Kathy Zine. That was part of the dream. And I keep it in my office just to remind me of that dream. In 1980, I sensed God repositioning me to have a more far-reaching impact. I hit the road. I became a conference and retreat speaker. For 26 years, my dream put me face-to-face with students and adults and pastors and church leaders around the country and in some parts of the world to help them connect with God and integrate His truth into their lives. Same dream, different venue. Then a few years ago, my dream led me to be more strategic with my schedule and to make time to be with one church or one group 3, 4, or 5 weeks in a row for a more focused impact. And it was during that time I was invited to speak for this church. And God surprised me a few months after that when it became clear He was repositioning me once again. This time, at this stage of my life, go figure, as a pastor of a church again. And you know what, gentlemen? I mean this with all my heart. Of all the things that I do here as a pastor of this church that revolve around my vocation, my calling, if I had to choose one, I promise you, it would be what we do in this room, in this thing that we call the Quest. Because of the impact I see, the lasting impact I see. It's the same dream I've always had, to help others connect with God and integrate His truth into their lives. And now I get to see it lived out in the lives of men. And I am so pumped because I know the depth of the impact that can be felt when guys engage into authentic manhood. Now, what do you dream about? And are you living the dream? Is it pulling you forward, okay? Here's the point. Write this down. The more our work integrates with our dreams, the more energy we will have for what we do. The more our work integrates with our dreams, the more energy we will have for what we do. That's Energizer number 1. Here's a second one, the right personal assessment. The right personal assessment. Over 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Plutarch uttered two words that even today prove to be one of history's wisest personal directives. You know what he said? Know thyself. Know thyself. Now, history has shown that few things are more helpful to a man than when he has a good personal assessment of himself. Now, you'd think that'd be easy, okay? We ought to know ourselves, right? I mean, we're with ourselves all the time. But remember the paradox principle from session 1? In every area of life, the paradox principle teaches us to ask the first question, and that question is, do I get it? So let's apply that to ourselves. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, do I get it? You know what the answer is? No, not without help. Every one of us, myself included, we are dogged by blind spots, poor conclusions, poor estimations, and the only way that we're ever really going to know ourselves is to ask for help. And when it comes to knowing yourself, we're all just partial qualifiers. We don't really get it fully. Here's what we need to know. We need to know that we're unique people with unique strengths. The scripture tells us in Psalm 139 that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We're all a one-of-a-kind person, okay? Science proves that. It tells us that there are no two human fingerprints are alike. You are all unique, one-of-a-kind creations on planet Earth, never to be repeated again. Here's how this applies to work. We are most energized at work when our unique strengths are most utilized. That thing that makes you who you are, the essence of you, we are most energized when those strengths are utilized. It's how we've been wired by God from the womb to see life, to experience life, to contribute to life. It's how we've been wired with our gifts and our strengths. And when those gifts are matched well to work, that's when we start experiencing energy in the workplace. Now the question is, how do I match those two together? How do I integrate those two? And that's a question that most companies struggle with. How to match people with their strengths. The Gallup organization polled 1.7 million employees in 101 different countries. And they asked this question: do you have the opportunity to put your strengths into play every day? Only 20% said yes. Only 20%. But the most bizarre thing they discovered is this. They found that when a person goes to work for a company, get this, the longer they stay in that company and the higher up the ladder they climb, the less they utilize their strengths. In the book, First Break All the Rules, Marcus Buckingham and Don Clifton argue that most companies are built on two flawed assumptions. The assumption that each person can be competent in almost anything given training. That's the first flawed assumption. If we can just train them enough, any person can do it. And secondly, that a person's greatest room for improvement is in their area of weakness. Flawed assumption number 2. Buckingham and Clifton say that's just totally incorrect. As a result, here's what's happened. Companies have spent millions of dollars training people to do things that they do not like and to work at things that they'll never be good at. Buckingham and Clifton proposed that instead, that companies focus first and foremost on employees' strengths. They say this: an employee's greatest room for growth at work is in the area of his or her strength. Companies need to bear down there. It's interesting that Warren Buffett, the financial tycoon, would agree with that. When he was speaking to a group of students at the University of Nebraska, he said this. He said, the biggest difference between you and me is not money. It's that I get to get up every day and do what I do best. He then looked at them and said, and that's the best advice I could give you as you leave and go to work. Do what you do best. So, how do you know yourself? Here are 2 critical knows, okay? The first thing we need to know is this. We need to know who we are. In other words, you need to know what your strengths are. The more you're confirmed in this, and the sooner you can learn your strengths, especially when you're young. Okay, guys, 35 or younger, the more you're able to learn this, the sooner you're able to learn this, the more you're going to be able to maneuver through life and look for work opportunities that match up with those known strengths. It's one of your most strategic moves as a young man to know what your strengths are. Now, how do you do that? Let me give you 3 practical ways. First of all, past experiences. Past experiences. Look back over your life and ask yourself this: where have I felt the most alive? Where have I felt the most alive, the most excited? Where have I enjoyed life more? And list those experiences. Then think back through those experiences and see if there are some common threads that just kind of join them all together. And you might have an aha moment. When I look back over my life, I can see that I get most excited when I'm creating things. Now, really anything in particular, but especially creating things that can help people understand God and learn to integrate His truth in their life. I am most fulfilled when I'm creating things that accomplish that purpose. I'm also energized when I'm communicating those things through teaching with all the media tools available to us today. Those are 2 of the threads that have connected me and helped me know who I am. Now, do you know what connects you? Secondly, wise, objective counselors. Here's how you find out who you are. Wise, objective. You might want to circle that word objective. You need objective counselors, not yes men, okay? Not yes men. Now, this is probably going to rule your family out, okay? You need people who can talk to you honestly and hard about what you're good at and also what you're not so good at. Here's some wisdom from the Scripture. Proverbs 11:14 says this: where there is no guidance, the people fall. But in an abundance of counselors, there is victory. Proverbs 13:20 says, he who walks with the wise will be wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. For the younger guys especially, there's a really strategic move here. You need someone who is objective and wise and honest, who can speak into your life the hard things, both good and bad, about who you really are. Letter C. There are personality and ability tests that can also help you know who you are. Personality and ability testing. Now, there are a lot of those out there. Okay, we took a simple personality test in our last semester of Winning at Work and Home to help us better engage, our wife or our girlfriend. And this is an incredible asset we have in the 21st century, but especially when it comes to the world of work. There are 3 assessment resources on your outline that you might find useful. One is your unique design, and this helps you discover how your personality and your motivations are wired and the implications of all that. You can go online and take that test. Another is the Strength Finder test, and this is published by the Gallup organization to help you identify your job strengths. And the third is AIMS, which stands for Aptitude, Inventory, Measurement, Surface. Now this is a whole testing organization up in Dallas. And you can go there and meet with counselors and take a battery of tests that will help you identify fields of employment that are a best fit for your gifting. You can take it at any time in your life, but, guys, this could be something, those of you who have sons and daughters about to graduate from high school, this could be something that you could set up for them before they go off to college to identify their strengths so they can be more strategic in the classes they take in college and not squander their college experience. That could be a good thing for you to do. Now, these are just 3 resources that could be useful to you. I wanted to recommend them to you today. We need to know who we are objectively. You could use counselors and testing, but in the process, you know what you're going to discover? You're going to discover something that is equally important. Write this down. You also need to know who you're not. You need to know who you're not. There are too many men who spend a good portion of their lives chasing dead ends at work. They're not salesmen. No matter how much they want to be. They're not managers, no matter how much they want to be. So they squander a large portion of their lives trying to be something they're not because nobody would sit down and tell them the truth. Until you know who you're not, you're never really going to discover who you are. That's one of the key moves of life for each one of us. Here's the point. Write this down. The more our work engages our strengths, the more energy we will have for what we do. Know yourself. I'm not an administrator. I'm not the managerial type. So I have to figure out in this environment, how do I spend 80% doing the creative things, the communication things that really energize me, that I'm really best at, and only 20% of the administrative stuff that I'm really not gifted at? How do you do that? You need to know who you're not. And you're most fulfilled. People are less irritated with you too. They're less frustrated with you when you stick to what you're best at. Now, number 3, this is going to seem like an odd phrase. It's kind of quirky, but we're going to call it the ever-righter job fit. Now, if you think, well, I don't know what that means, you could just substitute ever better. But let's use Energizer, number 3, the ever-righter job fit. Now, for most men, a good job fit's going to unfold over time. It's a process. A lot of guys have got this expectation that they're going to finish school, then they're going to go out in the work world, and they're going to nail it with the first job, man. That's going to be it. That is rarely the way it works. It's really kind of a process where most guys go through stages in life, and some of us might get stuck in some of those stages and never get out. I think the diagram in your workbook is going to help you get a feel for what I mean by the ever-righter job fit. Okay, look at your diagram. Let's start from the bottom. In the 20s, a job can be guesswork and discovery. You're just trying to figure out who you are, and you're using work to discover what you do best and what you don't do best. And then the energy that you get in this early time of work is really just through surviving. Okay, that's what's pushing you, just surviving. You know, I've got to work. When you get your first job, even if it's the wrong job, you're just excited that you're making a living. And you can run on that energy for a while, but here's the thing, it's not going to sustain you. You'll need more. Then you start moving into your 30s and 40s, and you realize you have to make some courageous, right adjustments. Because you're not after just surviving anymore. You want more than just survival. You're after success. And that's the energy that you get. When you're ready to succeed at work, you want to find the right fit. So you make some courageous adjustments. Then in your 40s and 50s, you begin to negotiate into a best fit. Now, success is not so important as significance. You want to be significant. You want to do something that really counts, especially if you're having some level of success. Now you can build on that into significance. Then, in your 50s and 60s, even later, somewhere along the line, it requires a bold move to what I call highest and best use. And the energy is sustainability. Okay, you want to find your highest and best use. And by sustainability, what I mean by that is this. It's something that I could do with my life even if I didn't get paid for it. Man, I could do this thing even if I wasn't employed. There's some aspect of your job maybe that you just give away for free. But what's really going to give you energy to get up every day is this. This is who I really am. This is my essence. And I want to do this for the rest of my life. We talked about retirement in the last session. And here's the thing. Retiring and doing nothing should never be the goal. Retiring and doing nothing should never be the goal. Now, it's okay to retire from your job, your career, and then maneuver into something more sustainable, but just retiring and doing nothing should never be the goal. You know why, guys? If you retire and do nothing, you're signing your death certificate. Because men are action figures. We are designed to contribute. And when a man stops contributing, he starts dying. That's what I mean by the ever-righter job fit. Somewhere along the line, some guys get stuck. They just kind of keep circling around guesswork and discovery. And now they're 50 years old. They're still guesswork and discovery. Some guys get stuck on the money part. Okay, they're successful, but they can't move to significance. You know why? They can't get the golden handcuffs off. They can't make the hard, courageous choice and get the golden handcuffs off. The money is just too attractive. They know they want to do something that's a better fit for them, but they can't give up the money. So they go to work getting the money, but they're just drained by work every day. Some guys think that after I've had significance, then there's nothing left, but there is something left. There's sustainability left. And you have to find that core, that essence, the best use of who you are. Now, I need to give you fair warning, okay? In this journey of the Ever-Rider job fit, there's going to be some anxiety-producing transitions along the way. All right? You've been duly warned. Because if you're going to move to each of these levels, it's going to take a bold, courageous move on your part to keep this work energy going. Most young men somewhere in their 20s are going to have to make a courageous, bold move to get a better job fit. It's going to scare you to death. But unless you do that, you'll never be the man you're supposed to be. Some of you are going to have to admit that the job that you're in right now just isn't you and you have to change. Some of you are going to have to just start over and find what you really want. It's going to be teeth clenching. It's going to be white knuckle scary for you to do so. But to not do it is to live an almost fit. And an almost fit will suck the life out of a man. Here's the point, guys. Write this down. The righter and tighter our work fits with who we really are, the more energy we will have for what we do. The righter and tighter our work fits with who we really are, the more energy we'll have for what we do. A fourth energizer is this: the right pace. The right pace. Surveys tell us that 40% of all workers today describe themselves as workaholics. I just want to ask you straight up, are you in that group? Are you a workaholic? It's easy to get addicted to work in our country today. Did you know that there's some people in this country? I was reading a magazine article about vacation time and what people in Europe expect to be just the basic, which would be you at least have 4 weeks vacation there, at least. And so here in America, though, there are a lot of people who are reluctant to take all of their vacation time because they think it's going to communicate to their superiors that they're not taking their job seriously. They think it's going to affect the possibility of a promotion if they just take the vacation time that's theirs. It's easy to become a workaholic. Make note of this. A good pace at work will provide enough time for 3 things: rest, family, and spiritual pursuits. Rest, family, and spiritual pursuits. By the way, even God rested from work. I believe he set that as a pattern for us. That's why one of his top 10 commandments is that you take some time off to enjoy life regularly. God built in a rhythm where you take time off every week. Make note of this. Good workers can often negotiate their pace. They can often negotiate their pace, especially established good workers. Now, guys, here's how this works. This can be life-changing for some of you here. If you do a good job, over time, you will establish your value in the eyes of the people you work with. The value that we can't afford to lose this guy. And that is your leverage. And if you do a good job, if you have a good impact, then you'll have that negotiating power. There was a doctor who was really concerned about the practice he was in. All the guys, including himself, were workaholics. It was leaving no time for family, no time for some spiritual pursuits that were growing within him. He didn't know what to do, so he asked a friend, a wise friend who could offer some counsel. He told his friend he felt like he was dying inside. He was working all the time, and his friend asked him this question. He said, "Do you think those guys at the practice, do you think they'd like to lose you?" And he was really good at what he did. And he said, "No, I really don't think they would." I think that they value what I contribute to the practice. And his friend said, that is your negotiating power. Why don't you just sit down, his friend said, and say, guys, I know we all work hard. We all make a lot of money. We're all measuring each other up every day by how much we do and how much we make. But here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to make less. In fact, I'd like to cap it right here. But for that, I want to work less. And if you don't agree with that, I'm leaving. You know what they did? They came back and said, you mean you'd really do that? He said, yes, I want this for this. And they agreed because they didn't want to lose it. That's negotiating power. Now, I know a number of men who have done that. Good workers can negotiate and leverage their good work for a right pace. Not more money, for a right pace. In fact, how about this? You know what? The extra money, thank you very much for offering that, but I'd rather have one more week of vacation time. That's unheard of, isn't it? Here's the point. Write this down. The more our work allows for a healthy pace and a balanced life, the more energy we will have for what we do. The more our work allows for a healthy pace and a balanced life, the more energy we'll have for what we do. All right, energizer number 5, a right focus. A right focus. It's what we said last week. Our work matters to God. You know, regardless of where you are spiritually today, I just want you to know that your work, my work, it all matters to God. How we do it, the energy we give to it, the passion we have for it, the quality of the performance that we give, all of that matters to God. And whether you know it or not, write this down, we work for Him. We work for Him. Remember Colossians 3:23 and 24? Whatever you do, do your work heartily as to the Lord, rather than from men, knowing that from the Lord you'll receive the reward of the inheritance. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve. That's who you're really working for. But know this, He also seeks to work through us and work with us. He wants to work through us and work with us. Philippians 2:13 says this, for it is God who is at work in you to will and to work for His good pleasure. Last week, we learned that God is a worker. You know what God is currently employed at doing? Working with you, working with us. That's His job. He wants to work with us. We are co-laborers with God. He wants to work through you to help you have the best life possible. That's His job. So you know what I say? Let Him do His job. Let Him do His job. And then here's the third thing about this right focus. We will all, one day, have a comprehensive job review. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10 speaks of this exit interview, so to speak. Here it is. For we will all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may be recompensed for his deeds in the body, including our work, according to what we have done, whether it has been good or bad. So the question that should be woven in and around and through our work each day is this: what does God want? Okay, what does He want in how I work and the message it sends to people around me, how I connect with employees and customers? What does God want in that? What does He want in the values I uphold? What does God want in the decisions I make, in the reputation I have? All of that matters to God, and He wants to work through you in your workplace. I want to tell you about Joe Ehrman. Some of you recognize this name. He was a professional football player. He went on to coach high school athletes in Baltimore, Maryland. Football had always been a part of Joe's life. In fact, it was the center of his life until a few years ago when Jesus Christ changed his life, began to work in him. Joe began to ask the question about himself: what does God want from me, from my life and work? And through a series of circumstances, he concluded for him, at that stage of his life, it was helping boys, both from the area in which he lived and also in the inner city, to help boys become men. Pulitzer Prize winner Jeffrey Marks wrote Joe Ehrmann's story in the book, Season of Life. I want to read you one snapshot of Jeffrey Marks' encounter with Joe Ehrmann on the job. Marks writes this. He said, "I watched as all the players gathered around the field. 'Time to get busy,' one of the boys shouted toward the Friday night sky. Joe Ehrmann had already seen and heard it all too many times for any of this to affect him a whole lot. He had seen and heard it as an All-American defensive lineman. He had seen and heard it through the 13 years as a professional football player, most of them as a star with the Baltimore Colts. He had seen and heard it during his 5 years of coaching at Gilman High School. And now at the age of 52, Joe was no longer fazed by the specific circumstances of any single game. No victory or defeat, no matter how glorious or excruciating for his team, would ever eclipse the real reason he was there: to teach boys how to be men of substance and impact. And that explained the absolute calmness with which Joe walked toward the huddled team for final comments just before the start of the 2001 season. Joe's brown eyes peered through his gold-rimmed glasses that conspired with white hair, with his closely trimmed white beard and mustache, as well to make him look more like a college professor than a jock. He did not need a clipboard because he coached from the heart. He did not need a whistle because his players automatically fell silent when he stood before them. This is one of the greatest experiences of your young lives, Joe told the boys. So let's make sure you're having fun, all right? You've been doing a lot of work the last few weeks to get ready for this. Now is the time you can let it all hang out. We're going to get after them tonight, but let's make sure we're having fun." And then Joe initiated his standard question and answer sequence. "What is our job as coaches?" he shouted at the players. And in unison, they shouted back, "To love us." "What is your job?" Joe shouted, and the boys shouted back in unison, "To love each other." The words were spoken with the familiarity of a mantra, the commitment of an oath, the enthusiasm of a pep rally. This was football? I soon discovered it was. It was big-time football. It was Joe Ehrmann's brand of football. And he was doing what he loved to do the most. He was changing boys into men and coaching football too. That's how you integrate your dream, the right dream, with your work. Here's the point. The more personally we integrate God and His eternal purposes into our work, the more energy we'll have for what we do. So how does all this apply to us today, guys? Let me bring it down just to a few specific action points on your outline, then we'll be done. Here's what you can do to energize your work right now. First of all, stop saying, "I'm trapped." Stop saying, "I'm trapped." No man is trapped except in his own mind. Guys, this is a journey to authentic manhood, not to authentic winehood. Manhood is not about feelings. Manhood is an act of courage. And so if you're listening to all these things we've said today, and it seems a little overwhelming, and you don't like your job, and you're thinking, "Oh, where can I start? Where can I start? I'm trapped." I just want to say, man up and get over it. You're not trapped. You're only trapped in your mind. If you want to become a man, you'll start moving. Today, you'll start moving. Letter B, which of the 5 work energizers are missing in your work? Go back over the session and identify what's missing. What do you have? What do you not have? And that's going to tell you what your targets are. And then watch this. Then decide what your first move that you can make to re-energize your work. Whatever that first move is, you need to put that on your 10 key moves worksheet. Then talk to some wise counselors about how best to make that move. Enlist friends to support you and pray for you and cheer for you. And finally, enlist God in prayer because He really wants to work for you and with you and through you. Now, all these courageous moves I've just listed for you, you know what I call those? Coming alive at work. Coming alive at work. You stop blaming circumstances, you assume responsibility, you make strategic moves, and you come alive at work. That's what real men